Welcome everyone. My name is Beverly Searle and I'll be talking with the concept of another type of treatment, another way of treating people who have a mental illness, diagnosed by psychiatrists or doctors or anything like that. About me, I didn't start my study. I was 48 when I sat the adult re-entry exam and spent 9 years, and I've got 4 degrees, and I specialised in adversity trauma, especially in childhood. My thesis was on that. I've presented at World and Australasian conferences. I've been on CEO of 2 not-for-profit organisations dealing with mental health, and I was on the board for the Mental Health Resource Centre, which is a government-run funding organisation. And so, been there, done that. The not-for-profit organisations, one I was in and helped set up and do everything, we weren't particularly funded well, so I never got paid. So it was 7 years of being a volunteer worker. If I got $20 for petrol, I was, thought it was good, because I'm dedicated to help people. And I was telephone support, home support, run the support group, so I have very, very vast experience. Like, if a person was suicidal, we'd really take 2 of us and we'd go and stay with her and talk to them until we can get them over. If a mum had some kids and they were going to miss out on Christmas and she was all distraught, we'd buy a few gifts and fancy up the house. And same with birthdays, have a candle and a cake and a few presents for the kids. And it was amazing going into people's houses and you see how they live. Like, if they're a hoarder, you're just going down a little corridor. Why does a woman clean her bathroom the way she does? She stood at the door, got buckets of water and threw it on the walls and everything, and that's how she cleaned her bathroom. When you looked into it, her mother tried to commit suicide a couple of times when she was a kid, and slit her wrist, and the girl would get the ambulance to come, and then no one followed through. So at 12, 14, 16, she had to clean the blood all off the walls, and that's how she cleans the bathroom. So everything what you do usually has a memory behind it. So, and psychiatrists now get so many hours where they have to talk to people in community centres and that, so outside of hospital settings, which they brought in just before I came here. So when I first started, I thought schizophrenia was a chemical imbalance, because that was the belief back then, and what I had wrong with me was a trauma disorder. So I said, if it happened to me, there should be a way to undo it. But through my studies, and going to lots of different conferences, I found out that schizophrenia isn't a chemical imbalance, proven. Schizophrenia is a misnomer. Schizophrenia, split personality, no such thing. Because I was in the Mental Health Resource Centre, the schizophrenic education person said to you, whenever she goes and gives a talk, she has to say, people think it's multiple personalities, but it's not. So what it is a psychosis. A person's in psychosis. So when the person, I'll tell you about Professor Loren Mosher. This is the studies he did in the 1970s. He ran a whole state in America. He had run the hospital. And when people came in psychosis, he'd say, you go to the hospital, stay in the hospital with the drugs. And he had a home. He said, you go into the home. So there was no rules or regulations. Whoever walked in, he just randomly did them. And what happened was, the ones who went into the home, they had volunteer workers there. And while they were in the psychotic period, if they wanted to lie in bed and have someone hold their hand, someone did that for the whole time. She said there was one woman who wanted to dance naked out in the backyard, they let her. So whatever the person did, wanted to feel in their psychosis, they allowed them in a safe environment. Psychosis has a beginning and an end. Now, what they're doing now is a person goes into psychosis and then the doctors give them a drug which shuts down everything, but the person, in most cases, don't like the drug. The amount of people, when I've run conferences and they come up, they hate the drugs and they try to get off of them because they're like walking zombies. So they go off the drugs without the doctor's permission, and then they go back in psychosis. And the doctor will say, see, that proves to you you have to stay on the drugs for the rest of your life. But they're forgetting or not recognising that if you allowed the person to work through the psychosis, what Professor Lauren Mosher did, they get well, they go back to leading their own life, and he didn't have any fall back into it because they worked through their issues. Now, he took this research, proved it to the government organisations and that, and lo and behold, he was sacked. Discredited through the whole sector as a, quack. And he lost everything. So when you go off the drugs, the psychosis comes back because it's only holding it down. So they go back into psychosis, and that's when the doctor says you have to stay on it for life because it comes back. But if they're allowed to go into a nurturing, supportive way with good food, nutrition, so they can work through it, they will come to the end. But the way they're treating it now, you're basically in it for life. And it's a terrible place to be. I mean, if you want the benefits of the government and all this sort of thing, schizophrenia is the best disorder to have. Because you get the pensions and they don't expect you to work and they don't... So, but it's the worst one to get out and to have. So the next person, because I'm always researching, I'm always studying, I came across...
How long was psychosis normally last?
It didn't matter.
Like the way
A few weeks, a few months.
Oh, it lasts a while though. It's not quick.
Whatever the person did, whatever they needed, they had. They had volunteer people come in and support.
But it takes a while though. It's not...
Yeah, it could. There's no time limit because everyone's so different. And he went back with the stats, with the pricing. If a person, say, was 3 months in there, and they had somebody with them 24 hours, that type of thing, and in the home, food and everything, then compared it to the hospital and the drugs, it was cheaper.
And a better result.
Does that include illegal, if a person's taken illegal drugs?